Hello, good morning. Yeah, this is Asuni Abiola, and this morning I will be telling a story that I love so much, an interesting story, inspiring story from the Bible. And guess what the story is? The story of Joseph. Now let's go into the life of Joseph. Yeah, Joseph was born into the family of Jacob and Rachel. Rachel didn't have children earlier. She had children in her old age. So she gave birth to Joseph and Benjamin. So it happened that because of this, Jacob loved Joseph so much because he's a son of his old age. But altogether, Jacob had 12 children. So because of his love for Joseph, he sold to him coat of many colors, and that is a symbol of royalty. So because of this, his brothers envied him. They felt, how why is it that our father loved Joseph so much? What is it that he has done that made our father to love him so much than we? And so they envied him. And not just that, one day Joseph had a dream. He had that dream. He was so eager to tell his dreams to his brethren. He called on his parents, his father. He told him the dream, and his father cautioned him. But yet his father paid close attention to his dream. Then he called on his brothers, on his brethren too, to tell them of his dreams. And then because of that, they envied him more. They hated him. That how would you tell us that we'll bow down to you? How he said he dreamt that the 11 stars would bow down to him, even including his parents. But his brothers hated him so much. So one fateful day, his brothers had gone to the farm, and then their father became so worried that he felt, oh, what are these people doing? They're not back yet. And then he decided to call on Joseph to please go to the farm to check how his people are faring. Then Joseph decided to go. On his way there, his brothers saw him from afar, and they began to devise so many strategies. They began to think of so many evil things. Look at him. Look at the dreamer. See him, he's coming. What do you think we can do? Let's kill him. Let's kill him, and then we'll soak his cloth into the blood of animal. They will tell our father that a wild animal devoured him. While they were saying that, Reuben said to them, oh, do you think it is any necessity that we kill our brother? Do let's have his blood on our hands. Then he said, let's throw him into the pit, and whilst he's there, he would see nobody to help him, and from there he would die. But in Reuben's heart, he felt if such is done, he could still go back to rescue him. And while he said that, the other brother Judah said to them, oh, let's not kill him. Let's sell him out. There are some merchants coming from afar. Let's sell him out to them as slave. Do you think anything good could come out of a slave? And then they all agreed. Those merchants came, and then they told them, oh, we have somebody to sell. And then those ones gladly bought Joseph. So what do they need to do? They felt in their hearts, we had something to tell our father at home. What should we tell him? And then they took Joseph's cloth, wrapped it in animal's blood, and then they took it to their father. They cried, oh, father, we don't know what animal devoured our brother on his way. And the father was so sad. He cried, and he felt, oh, why? My boy that I loved so much, how come? Then he cried so bitterly, but there's nothing he could do to bring him back to life. And so life continues. So Joseph, now where he has been sold as a slave, he met himself in Potiphar's house as a slave. Right there, Potiphar committed all that he had into Joseph's hand because he loved him. And then one day, while Joseph was in Potiphar's room trying to tidy up, Potiphar's wife made advances to Joseph and told him, oh, I just like you, Joseph. You're such a handsome boy. please, 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 just sleep with me. And Joseph said, no, I cannot do this. This is a sin against the God who has created me. And also, your master has committed all into my hands except you. I do not have any right over you, madam. I can't do this. And then he just realized that it was getting out of hand. Then he thought, what can I do? He has the Potiphar's wife was trying to drag him to make. What did he do? He realized that his garment could hold him down, and then he left his garment with Potiphar's wife, and then he flew. So Potiphar's wife looked at him. Oh, you think you're wise? This is what I'm going to use against you. The immediate Potiphar's wife began to cry. She cried bitterly, and then went to her husband. Could you see the boy you brought to the house? Do you know what he wanted to do? He wanted to sleep with me forcefully. And then Potiphar became so disdained. He became so angry, and he said to them, could you please get me that boy? Get me that slave. Get me what is it that he wants me to do that I've not done for him? And then that was how Joseph met himself in the prison again. Whilst in the prison, he met with two other people again, the cupbearer and the chief baker. And then these two servants of the king offended the king, and the king became so angry that he had to throw them in the prison. So while in the prison, they had dreams, and then they were so puzzled on what the interpretation of the dream was. And then they said it to Joseph, and Joseph told them to please tell him what the dream is. And then they shared their dream. So eventually he was able to interpreted the dream of the cupbearer, and he told him that he's going to be promoted, that if by the end, when he comes out of the prison, he should please not forget him, he should remember him. But the chief baker would be dead, they will kill him. And so the dream interpretation was just as Joseph had interpreted it. The cupbearer came out of the prison, but he forgot Joseph again. And there Joseph was in the prison for 2 extra years with nothing happening. And so one day the king had a dream, King Pharaoh, and then he could not even remember what the dream was, talk less of the interpretation. Then he said to all the astrologers, he called on the astrologers and the magicians to please help him with the dreams, but none of them could help him out. And so that was when the cupbearer remembered. He said, oh, I think Joseph can help the king out in this matter. Then he told it to the king and said to him, oh, I have somebody in the prison, Joseph. It can be of help. And then the king ordered that Joseph should come over to meet him. And then they brought him out of the prison, shaved him, and wear him a different clothes so that he can meet up with the king. And when he got to the king said to him, oh, I had a dream, could you please tell me and interpret? And he said, don't worry, God will help you. And then he told the king his dreams, he interpreted the dreams, and then he gave the king the solution to the dreams. The dream was about a famine of 7 years that was about to happen. And then he suggested to the king that since this famine will be happening for 7 years, that it's better that they gather things, they store things up against those 7 years, so that when the famine comes, they would not be able to, they won't feel it, and it won't affect them in any way. The king became so happy. He became so perturbed about the intelligence of this young man. And then he said to him, oh, he removed the signet on his hand and then gave to him, and that is a symbol of authority. He said to him, in authority, after I, then you are the next. And then that was how Joseph became the prime minister. So right in Canaan land, Jacob and his children were hungry. There was no food because of the famine, and then he ordered that his children should go to, two of his children should go to Egypt to go and see if they can get food to buy, because the news has gone round that there is food in Egypt. So they agreed, and then they went there. When they got to the place, Joseph recognized them, but they could not recognize Joseph. Really, Joseph has changed. The way he left, and now someone being a prime minister, it would have looked so different. Because they are still suffering, they might just look the way they were before. And so they could not recognize him. He went somewhere and he cried. And then, after sending the food out to them, he now decided to put a coin. So they should put a coin in their bag. And when they were leaving, he ordered that one of his servants should go and check the bag, that he's looking for a coin. And then when they checked their bag, that was just a means to delay them and to be able to get his brother. And then they checked it, and they said to him, "Oh, can we check your bag, please? You're looking for a coin. We're looking for coin." And so when they checked the bag, they saw the coin, and then they asked them to come back. So when they got there, Joseph said to them, how many are you? He said, "We are 12. How about your last brother?" They said, "Yes, Benjamin is fine, he's at home." And then he said to them, "I would like to see that your last child." And then one of them had to stay back, the other went back home. When he got back home, he told his father what it was. The father became so sad. "Ow, this is just the child Rachel left for me, and you guys want to take." That was how Joseph left, and up till date, Joseph is gone. "You want to take this one away from me again?" And then he vowed, he said to him, "Father, I promise you we are going to bring him back to you." And then their father released Benjamin. So when Joseph saw Benjamin, when they got there, Joseph saw him. Joseph was so happy. That was his main blood. They were of the same mother and the same father. He held onto him, hugged him, and then kissed him on his head. And then he said he had no choice than to tell his brothers. He said, "Oh, this is the Joseph that he sold out to slavery." Wow. They were almost buried in their shame. They felt so ashamed of themselves, and then they knelt and began to plead, because I could imagine that at that point they might just be thinking that if they were to be in that situation, maybe probably they might just order that they can go and kill. If they were to be Joseph, probably they might say they should kill the person that did that. But what did Joseph say to them? Joseph said, "Oh no, though it can be so painful, but you don't need to bother. You have kept me for a posterity. If I had remained with you people, do you think all this would happen today? So I've forgiven you, there is no problem." And then rejoicingly, Joseph took them to go and meet Pharaoh. And Pharaoh ordered that other members of his family should come over to sojourn in Egypt. And then that was how they all came. And Joseph married, he had children. And so what can we really learn from this story? The first thing that we'll learn from this story is that it begins with Jacob. It begins with Jacob. Jacob showed to his children that he preferred Joseph to other children, and that was just the beginning of the enmity. As parents, we should try as much as possible not to show preference to a child than others, because this can cause enmity between your children and even amongst your children. You need to be very careful. And also, Joseph told his dreams to his brothers. What are your dreams? What are those dreams you have? Who do you tell your dreams to? Sometimes we have dreams out of eagerness, out of wanting to know what it means, out of feeling so good about it. We just call on people that cannot help you, people that cannot really help you out with your dreams. You just tell them. And that was what Joseph did. He was so eager to tell his dreams, and he never imagined that who would really be happy. These brothers you're talking about, they don't really like you, and you're telling them they will bow down to you. They would not like it, for crying out loud. But yet you told them, and that was another reason why they hated him so much. Watch out those you tell your dreams to. Can they really help you out with your dreams, or they will only talk down your dreams? You need to be careful when you tell your dreams. And then what other lessons can we learn from this story? Another lesson we can learn from it is that Joseph flee. He flee, and then he left his garment. And that is to tell us that Joseph's garment was more like an obstacle at that point in time. He could have had an excuse that, "Oh, I wanted to run, but your wife held me so tightly." He didn't allow me leave, and that was why I had to do it. But at that point, he realized, and he said, even if it is this my garment that will make me do that which my master's wife is asking me to do, then it's better I leave the garment. What did he do? He left his garment behind and then he ran. He flew. My brothers and sisters, the teenagers out there, everyone listening and watching me, what are those things you're giving as excuses for falling into that trap? What are those things you're giving as excuses for going into that sin? You need to be careful. You need to watch it. Flee from all appearances of evil. That is what the Bible says. We need to flee. Do not give excuse. There is no reason for any excuse at all. Joseph had to leave his garments, not minding what would happen. He left his garments behind. Also, we would realize that Joseph had a dream earlier in his time, and at that point, Joseph was 17 years when he had this dream, and the dream didn't come to fulfillment until 30 when he became the prime minister. So, is there any promise that you've gotten from God? Is there any word of prophecy that you've gotten and all you're seeing is more like there is no traces of it happening? You just have to wait. One thing that God teaches is patience. You need to learn to be patient. Despite the dream that Joseph had, despite all that he went through, yet he decided not to take a shortcut. Some of us might look at it, oh, when Potiphar's wife made advances, he might have just looked at it in his human sense to say, oh, if I do this, I will do this, I might end up getting this and this and that, and he would want to work things out for himself. But yet, he did not do that. He kept on pressing on. So what are those promises you have gotten? What are those word of prophecy that you've gotten? And it's more like they're not actualizing. Do not worry. It will surely come to pass. He said the vision is for an appointed time. Though it may tarry, but wait, it will surely come to pass. And also, the life of Joseph also taught us on dependency on God. We need to depend on God for whatsoever. Each time he interprets dreams, each time he tells people their dreams, he never said it that he would do that. He always depends on God to give him the interpretation of those dreams or to give him what the dreams are. So in everything that you do, acknowledge him. Acknowledge him as your giver. Acknowledge him as the source of the one that has given you. He acknowledged him as giver of the dreams. And then, because of that, God never failed him. Each time, he is able to get the interpretation, also to get what the dream is. Then, the paramount lesson that we can learn from this is forgiveness. Forgiveness. Joseph forgave. Despite what his brothers did to him, he decided to forgive. It got to a point where they were like, oh, he said, do not worry. He had that understanding that if they had not done that, possibly it might not become what it became at that point in time. Forgiveness is key. We need to learn to forgive, because the Bible says in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 32, it said, be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ has forgiven you. Yeah, Joseph had all the authority, he had everything to punish his brothers, but yet he decided to forgive them. No matter what people might have done to you, no matter how hurting what they've done might be, you need to learn to forgive, because it is God who has taken Joseph to that position. If he had taken to himself to say he's not going to forgive them, we learn to forgive one another. And this is all we'll be talking, this all we'll be saying about the story of Joseph today. So see you again next time. Bye.